Come to Remora TC to trade like a shark and not get eaten by one. Let's school together to protect and grow our money. Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. May 1st, Wednesday. The market just closed. Let's take a look at the price action for the past couple of days. We've got Microsoft up here. Let's switch over to the 1-year chart. Here's the 1-year chart. You can see this big red candle on the far right with a small green one and then a red one. You can see, from a big picture standpoint, it's a downtrend, at least for the past 3-4 weeks. Yeah, 3 weeks. Let's switch over to the daily chart, get a better view of Microsoft. All right, you can see this annotation that I made from a couple of days back, stating that Microsoft will have further low prices with an expected support area down here at the 200-day moving average. You can see that. You can see also today's price action. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit to explain what happened. And I'm going to borrow this arrow here so we can point to the price action. You can see here, okay, selling here, selling here, selling here. Now it sold all the way down and it went underneath this long-term trend line. Okay, so let's take a moment. I'm going to highlight this trend line, make it thicker. Let's make it 4 so we can get a better look at it. I'm going to zoom out. You can see that we annotated this a while back. I had this trend line drawn for months now. And you can see it goes all the way back to a long time. Okay, and the point is, if we get good at doing technical analysis and drawing our trend lines, then we can predict price action and how retail behavior will be, or even institution behavior will be around these price points. So here we have price movement today. So today is this green candle that closed underneath the trend line. That's a key point. Okay, so for those who are bearish, the big red candle with a bit of volume down here, you can see the volume. And then today, the buyers stepped in to attempt to reclaim support above this trend line. In the end, they failed, and it is now beneath this trend line. Let's go to the 1 hour just to show you the price action from today. Okay, so today starts on, let's say, right here, this green candle here. So I'm going to use a different arrow here. So on this green candle here, that's today's price action. The investors came in to try to buy it up. They bought it up, boom. Okay, so almost at the end of the day, they attempted to keep it above the trend line, but the sellers came in and sold it down, and it closed beneath the trend line. Okay, switch back to the daily. So what does this mean for my thesis? My thesis remains unchanged because the RSI and the price action hasn't changed sufficiently enough for me to say that the direction will change. So I'm still anticipating that Microsoft will go down to the 200-day moving average at the minimum down here. Okay, and I annotated it with this blue line here. And actually, let me redraw it because you can see that the 200-day is starting to lose the steepness, right? So I'm going to draw it like that. Let's move this over a little bit. Yeah, it's kind of like that. Okay, so we'll see. If you're long on Microsoft, I suggest that perhaps take some profit. If you're wanting to go long, this is definitely not the time to, because there's resistance here. Let me just annotate it like this. Change this to my red here. That's resistance. Definitely don't buy into it now. It's not an objective area to go long. Okay, I'm gonna put this back the way I had it, and I'm gonna go like this to clean it up. There you go. I'll just make it a 2. Okay, so that's my update on Microsoft for the low prices. I mean, it's very possible that they may attempt over the next couple of days to reclaim that trend line support, but the RSI hasn't changed, so lower prices to come. Switching over to GDX, gold miners. You can see the price action since the start of March, uptrend for sure. And the question is, will the uptrend continue? Is there enough momentum to keep it going? Switching to the daily chart, you can see my thesis here. The thesis was that price would go up, perhaps retest this resistance, and then end up selling down to the support zone down here that I've annotated in green, only to bounce off of that and then retest this purple trend line of resistance up here. Price didn't quite behave that way. You can see that. It never reached this resistance area up here in red, right? It never reached this. In fact, it sold down earlier. So I'm going to get rid of this blue arrow. And let's take a look. What's the price action going to be now? Well, because price is in the middle, it's in this spot here. It's in the middle of an upward resistance here and lower support. It's in the middle. I still feel price is going to go down. I'm just going to annotate it like this. I think they may attempt to fill the gap here. So I'm going to draw a box right here where there's a gap. So the gap starts right there. Okay. So the gap opened on 29 April. It was the close up there and then gap down and closed here on the 30th. So you can see it created this gap. Gaps are meant to be filled. So I think they may move price up, attempt to fill the gap only to come back down to the support. Now, my personal preference is if it comes down to the support zone, then I would go long. That would be my play. And what does this support down here at 31.56? Does it still come into play? I'm going to delete it for now. I mean, if price breaks underneath this one, then 31.56 might be support. But for now, I'm not going to put that. I'm not going to leave it in the annotation. All right, so that's gold miners for us. Let's switch over to ExxonMobil. This is the oil play. You can see the price action from the start of the year, basically middle of January. Lots of buying, all those green candles, only to have the recent month and a half selling. Okay, switch over to the daily to check out my prior thesis. Prior thesis was that the uptrend. Okay, so I said, so this was when I made the chart. I said that price will likely go up and retest the all-time highs. You can see the all-time highs right here. And I also said that when they do that, there will be further bearish divergence down here. In fact, the retest of the all-time highs never took place. So I will delete this arrow here. Now let's take a look at what happened. What we can see, I'm going to remove this and use this as a pointer. You can see that this green support line, support zone on the purple did not hold. So the sellers came in, sold it down. You can see that when price got underneath the purple trend line right here, tested this trend line here, the thicker dark trend line, and bought it back up, retested the purple trend line from underneath, got rejected, and further selling. There's a little bit of acceleration. I mean, not a lot. You can see past 2 days. What are we going to do now? Well, I feel this thick trend line is now resistance. Okay, so let me just mark it real quick. Let's clean up some of these a little bit. So this one is now resistance, okay? You can see that. I'm going to shift it over a little bit so that it's cleaner looking. Okay, you can see that. That's resistance. It's now resistance, so lower prices, really. I mean, how far down? So let's take a look. I'm going to move this over a little bit. Let's use this one to take a look at the percentage. So let's say they retest from underneath here tomorrow. Okay, so if tomorrow they decide to buy it back up, right? So it's about a 1% move at max. They might wick it through, right? They might wick it through, maybe even get up to here to the 117, the 118, and sell it back down. So that's about at max a 2% stop limit if you're doing this as a short, and then short it underneath this one, underneath the red here. You can move that out of the way, and then if we go down to the 200-day, that's about a 7% move almost. In fact, let me extend some of my trend lines here so that we have a better look here. So I'm looking at this one right here. Let's make it a little bit thicker so we see which one I'm talking about. I'm going to extend it, pull it down just a smidge like that. Okay. And then delete this guy. So if we were to get down to this support line, this one right here, if we get to this support line, it's almost a 6% move. Okay. So depending on where you put your stop up here, the risk reward ratio is favorable for the short. Okay. But anyway, I'm going to put this like this just to be clear that my thesis is further prices down for ExxonMobil. Save this. Switch over to Bitcoin, everybody's favorite speculative play. A lot of selling lately, right? Everybody was thinking about the halving and all that mumbo jumbo about Bitcoin. And my thesis from my last video, well, actually from many videos, is lower prices for Bitcoin. And sure enough, here it is. All right, let's put the RSI back in so we can see. And my thesis is based on all of this long-term RSI bearish divergence. I mean, there's tons of it down here, okay? You can see it here, all of that, going all the way back to November last year. So my thesis was lower prices. Was it just a matter of when? And here it is. You can see it's happening. So the question is, will prices get down to this trend line, which I will just extend, or the one below it here? Okay, let's zoom in, give us a better look. All right, so it's staying. Let's save this. So what I think will happen, you've got RSI down here. Okay, RSI is not oversold yet. I think prices will continue to go down. They may retest. All right, I mean, they may retest the 59,000 line right there, price point from underneath. So they may buy it up, hit that. My sense is it's coming down to this trend line here. So let me just draw this like this. Okay, that's the near-term move because Bitcoin moves 24/7, so I can't make a longer-term call yet. So I think ultimately, let's switch over to the weekly. Here's the weekly. From a weekly standpoint, watch. If I were to draw a line like this, here, down to about here, let's make it thicker so you can see it. Let's change the color so you can see it. If it comes down there, if I were to duplicate it, let's see if it comes up and retests here. So about 40, okay. So this is it's not a science, but I think if price comes up, if price does this, if price does this, okay, and then they buy it up to here, and then if I put this here, okay, see that zigzag lightning bolt type of action from here to here, buy it up here, retest here, coming down here. That takes us to about 42. So you heard it here first, but that's a little bit of a guess on the weekly. That's a weekly chart view. Let's go back to the daily. So on the daily, near term, I would say comes down to about this 54, about 54-ish. Okay. So if you were to go long, I would wait to go long. Because if you go long, this might be a nice long area for you, even though I'm not convinced that it'll hold. But from an objective standpoint, you would want to go long on support. So that would be your support. But for me, this is resistance here. Okay. So that is Bitcoin. Those are the 4 tickers to talk about. You know what? Let's add one. Let's look at triple Qs. Triple Qs is the NASDAQ 100. We haven't talked about it on my channel in a really long time, but I'm going to do it today because I feel the price action is at a really important point. I'll call it a pivotal point, and I'm going to annotate it here. Give me a second. Zoom out. You can see I drew this purple trend line that goes back a super long way. I'm going to extend it. Okay. Annotate that again. So to about there. So that purple trend line goes back. Let's go to the monthly. I've annotated that back to forever. Okay. Back to 2000. So you might say, wow, that's quite a bold attempt at a trend line. And I say, well, luck favors the bold. Is that the phrase? I forgot what it is, but let me annotate this one. It goes like this. Okay. Purple trend line has been there for a long time. And price behaves a certain way every time it gets to that line. So my thesis is much lower prices for triple Qs. It may come, with the FOMC minutes get released, the announcement or minutes get released that interest rates will have to be kept high or increased. Ultimately, triple Qs and your Apples, your Teslas, Google, Facebook, all of your tech stocks are going to be selling. So I think there's going to be further selling, perhaps even down to the 400 area. I'm going to draw this as resistance up here. There's a big resistance zone up there. And I'm not convinced that this is a support zone from a technical analysis standpoint. I should put it there because I've annotated it before as a trend line that needs to be respected. It goes back a ways. Okay. So there you have it. That's your triple Qs and your tech stocks. And as always, good luck with your trades. As always, remember that my content is for educational purposes only. It's not investment advice. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And when you subscribe, please do hit the bell icon